Warning, ignore the next few minutes at your own peril, because they might just save your life. Imagine your mind slowly turning against you, quietly betraying you day by day until the devastating truth hits too late. Every single day, thousands of ordinary people brush off subtle shifts in their behavior as merely getting older, completely unaware they're ignoring critical red flags. But here's the chilling reality: those little lapses could be the first tremors before a catastrophic mental earthquake that could destroy your memory independence and even trigger severe circulation problems like a debilitating stroke. Experts across the globe are sounding alarms. These seemingly insignificant changes in your day-to-day life are deadly warnings of cognitive decline, warnings you simply can't afford to dismiss. Because by the time confusion becomes obvious or memories start vanishing completely irreversible, damage could already be underway. In the shadows of your routine life, far subtler and sinister signs creep in: a brief lapse during conversations, inexplicable mood swings, or difficulty making simple decisions. Individually, these signals appear trivial. Together, they become a ticking time bomb threatening your mental and vascular health. Overlook these subtle hints, and you're not just risking forgetting names. You might be on a collision course with severe circulation blockages and a life-threatening stroke. In this gripping investigation, you'll uncover 5 hidden signs, quietly announcing your brain's silent struggle long before a formal diagnosis surfaces. These stealthy indicators are your brain's desperate whispers for help, hints of confusion, compromised decision-making, and personality shifts so dramatic your closest friends might not recognize you. Stay with me, because we'll expose the tragic consequences of dismissing these early warnings through real-life chilling case studies and authoritative insights from world-renowned experts at Harvard and the World Health Organization. You'll discover actionable steps to safeguard your memory, enhance blood flow, and drastically lower your risk of devastating stroke events. Don't dare click away. The next segment is a harrowing real-world story, a chilling, cautionary tale about the terrible price paid by those who chose to ignore these early signals. Watch closely. Your life and independence may depend on it. Transition: a brief clinical story. Let me tell you about Robert, age 71, a semi-retired accountant who prided himself on meticulous record-keeping. For decades, he controlled every penny of his family's budget, cross-checking receipts and labeling files in color-coded folders. Then his daughter noticed something strange. Robert began scattering unpaid bills across the kitchen, mixing them in with random clippings of yesterday's news, and occasionally forgetting where he kept his checkbook. At first, she chalked it up to routine forgetfulness. When Robert missed 2 consecutive mortgage payments, that assumption was shattered. His confusion extended beyond the checkbook. He grew unexpectedly agitated when making even minor decisions, such as which route to take when driving to a familiar cafe. A mundane conversation at the dinner table often lost him midway, leading him to repeat the same questions. This was not normal aging. It was a profound shift in his cognitive skills. Frighteningly, doctors later uncovered that Robert's circulation wasn't optimal, thereby exposing him to a heightened chance of serious vascular incidents. Robert's plight shows us precisely why early detection matters. Small oversights, misplaced paperwork, repeated queries, confusion about routine errands can be the earliest clues that mental processes are faltering. Waiting until severe impairment sets in can pose not just memory threats, but also open the door to broader health complications, including restricted blood flow and stroke events. When the family asked whether some of these mild issues could have been warning flares, they learned that such changes might begin to surface a year or more before a formal diagnosis of dementia is made. Doctors caution that the longer these symptoms go unnoticed, the harder they are to manage. In what follows, we'll examine 5 cues like those. Robert experienced signals that you or someone you love might display well in advance of typical memory lapses. Each section will detail how these subtle changes might harm daily living and how they can compound into larger health issues if neglected. We'll also incorporate quotes from esteemed voices in the medical sphere, giving you the knowledge to face these signals head-on. Most importantly, you'll receive practical tips, a blueprint for what to do right now to shield your mind and bolster your vascular resilience. Stay vigilant, because turning a blind eye could be the biggest gamble you ever take with your health. Kunumanumantan. Section 1. Early forgetfulness that disrupts daily tasks. First, let's zero in on the type of memory slip that sneaks up quietly, where you forget short everyday tasks that you've completed for years. We're not talking about an occasional mix-up like misplacing your phone once in a blue moon. Instead, these are repeated lapses that start interfering with normal routines, such as suddenly forgetting the reason you walked into the garage or neglecting a long-standing weekly grocery trip. In some cases, you may leave the stove on because your mind wanders mid-task. These seemingly mundane slip-ups can be the quiet beginnings of mental decline. People might notice these episodes but wave them off as unimportant. The trouble is their frequency can ramp up over time. Left unchecked, they can lead to serious safety issues like forgetting to turn off appliances or consistently running late because you overlooked critical steps in your daily schedule. Additionally, such lapses erode self-confidence. You may start wondering whether you can rely on your own memory, creating a sense of unease and vulnerability. Emma, a 73-year-old retired teacher, offers another vivid example. She used to keep impeccable lesson plans in her home archive, referencing them even in her retirement to help tutor neighbors' kids. Over a few months, her husband noticed she was repeatedly asking him if he'd seen her glasses, despite them often sitting neatly on her own bedside table. Then she began missing her usual hair appointment, dates something she'd previously never failed to attend for 2 decades. These were small signals, individually harmless, but collectively hinting at deeper changes in her brain's memory pathways. Scientists have found that slight memory misfires could indicate the initial stages of cognitive decline, sometimes appearing up to a year before more recognizable dementia symptoms. According to a 2020 briefing from the World Health Organization, WHO risk reduction of cognitive decline and dementia. Everyday recall is anchored in complex neural networks that are easily disrupted by age-related changes, oxidative stress, or even microvascular impairments. When those neural circuits start to falter, these routine oversights increase. Though not everyone who experiences these slip-ups will develop full-blown dementia, the correlation is worrying enough that experts urge caution. Repeated forgetfulness can nudge you toward deeper disruptions in how you engage with your environment. Once you're uncertain about your recollection, you might change how you plan your day. Maybe writing sticky notes for every single task or relying excessively on your spouse to confirm details. This new dependence can undermine self-esteem and gradually limit your independence. Even if you haven't reached a point of serious impairment, the daily burden of anxiety and second-guessing can erode your overall well-being. A small slip today can foreshadow larger complications tomorrow. Some people manage to mask early forgetfulness by developing elaborate coping strategies. For instance, they might keep 2 planners or meticulously set countless alarms on their phones. While these adaptations can help in the short term, they also hide the real problem. Your capacity to remember reliably without aids might be fading. By the time friends or family catch wind, the decline could be well underway. As a result, the best approach is to pay attention to these early red flags so you can consult a physician before more severe deficits appear. To break this down scientifically, the brain's hippocampus, crucial for forming new memories, might be the first area to show subtle shrinking or cellular damage. Researchers at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health in a 2018 study published in the journal Neurology observed that small daily oversights such as losing track of recent conversations may correspond with decreased hippocampal volume on MRI scans. Their conclusion was direct mild memory issues often act as a gateway to more extreme cognitive challenges if not addressed promptly. The earlier you recognize such signs, the earlier you can employ lifestyle changes and medical evaluations to protect that vulnerable brain tissue. There's also a vascular side to these memory gaps. When your bloodstream is compromised, say through clogged arteries or chronic inflammation, the brain receives less oxygen. This shortfall can starve neurons of what they need to function. Over time, repeated episodes of suboptimal blood flow may damage delicate neural pathways, thereby exacerbating the forgetfulness you observe day to day. That's why it's critical to see these lapses not just as a nuisance, but as a cue to examine your cardiovascular profile. You may be asking, so what do I do if I suspect I'm slipping more than usual? Start by documenting the incidents. Keep a small log for a week or two, noting each time you forget why you entered a room or misplaced something in an unusual spot. That record can offer valuable clues to a healthcare professional. If you notice a pattern of increased frequency, it's time to speak to your provider for a full evaluation, neurological assessment, blood tests, and perhaps imaging. Always remember knowledge is power when it comes to cognitive health. It's also wise to be candid with loved ones about your concerns. If they notice you're asking the same questions repeatedly or missing routine appointments, encourage them to be honest with you. Denial only delays solutions that could slow or stabilize the course of cognitive change. More often than not, family members pick up on subtle warning signs well before a person recognizes them in themselves. This dialogue helps create an environment where early interventions can occur without shame or secrecy. Additionally, mental exercises and consistent routines can sometimes help re-strengthen or preserve short-term memory. Simple strategies like crossword puzzles, reading challenging materials, or engaging in conversation groups can keep your mind active. Physical exercise supports the effort too by enhancing blood flow throughout the body, including the brain. As the Alzheimer's Association data from 2019 points out, moderate aerobic activity a few days a week can boost cognitive performance in older adults. Combine that with a balanced diet rich in antioxidants and essential fatty acids, and you have a multi-pronged defense against early forgetfulness. If you're noticing this creeping forgetfulness in a loved one, approach the subject with sensitivity. Rather than confronting them abruptly, gently, share observations and express concern in a supportive way. Feeling attacked or judged might cause the individual to withdraw or deny the problem. By framing the conversation as a mutual journey, we want to ensure your mind stays sharp, so let's figure this out together. You lessen defensiveness. This fosters a spirit of collaboration in seeking solutions. Before we move on, it's important to reiterate, subtle frequent slips in memory are not a trivial part of getting older. They can be an alarm that your cognitive wiring is beginning to fray. Early detection is key. You can adapt habits, tweak your diet, and get professional advice. Such actions offer a better shot at maintaining both mental clarity and robust circulation. So keep an eye on whether these absent-minded moments pile up, and don't hesitate to take them seriously. Now that we've examined the early memory gaps that might foretell something bigger, we'll turn our focus to the next sign, an abrupt or puzzling shift in temperament. Why does mood matter? Because abrupt changes in personality can precede noticeable memory decline by months, sometimes even a year or more. Stay tuned, because understanding these mood changes can help you intervene well before more severe impairment takes hold. Let's head there now. Section 2. Mood or personality changes. A sudden temper flare, a prolonged bout of sadness in someone who's usually upbeat, a previously outgoing individual now opting to stay behind closed doors. These are not just random quirks, but potentially early indicators that the emotional regulation part of the brain is under strain. When these mood shifts become consistent, especially without an obvious cause, it's time to pay attention. Clinical experts frequently point out that the pathways controlling emotions can show dysfunction earlier than memory centers in certain types of cognitive decline. That's why a person who was once mild-tempered may suddenly lash out over a minor inconvenience, like a delayed mail delivery. This isn't simply a bad day. It might be the brain struggling to process stress or novelty, foreshadowing more severe cognitive deficits ahead. Think of it like a car engine light you can still drive, but trouble is brewing underneath the hood. Meet Marjorie, age 69, and once the life of every family gathering. She'd never leave a neighbor's greeting unanswered and was known for supporting community bake sales. Over the course of 6 months, she became guarded and suspicious. She began believing that neighbors were talking about her or plotting behind her back. This paranoia signaled a drastic turn from her prior personality, alerting her daughter that something was off with her mental stability. Marjorie's physician explained that some forms of cognitive impairment begin in the frontal and temporal regions of the brain areas involved in controlling social conduct, empathy, and inhibition. Subtle anatomical changes there can ripple outward, altering mood and personality well before any hallmark memory troubles appear. Dr. Michael Greger, referencing a 2017 publication in the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry, noted that early personality disturbances can act as a predictor of more pronounced mental decline. By the time the family recognized these transformations, they were already in full bloom. One reason this aspect is tricky to spot is that mood fluctuations often seem easier to justify or rationalize. She's just stressed, or he's having a bad month. Indeed, daily life can bring many reasons for frustration or sadness. Yet if there's no clear trigger, no bereavement, no financial catastrophe, and the personality shift grows steadily, you need to question whether deeper neurological factors might be at work. Observing the timeline is critical. Does the irritability or apathy persist for weeks or months, defying the usual ups and downs? Why does it matter in terms of overall health? Because personality changes often mirror fluctuations in how the brain perceives and processes its surroundings. The same vascular issues that raise your stroke risk can also deteriorate critical brain tissue, leading to abrupt mood swings. If you notice that your loved one flies off the handle at trivial remarks or withdraws from social events without explanation, take heed. This shift might not just be emotional, it could be physiological, indicating compromised blood flow or structural changes in the frontal cortex. Any sign of heightened paranoia or suspicion should set off alarm bells. Individuals might blame family members for stealing items they themselves misplaced. They might interpret harmless comments as personal attacks. This paranoia can fracture relationships and accelerate loneliness, which in turn deprives the brain of necessary social interaction that can keep neurons active, and that isolation can act like an accelerant, pushing mild deficits toward more severe impairment. Sometimes the shift manifests as a deep sadness or apathy rather than explosive anger. A once engaged grandparent deeply involved in reading to grandchildren may now sit quietly unresponsive to conversation, as if life has lost its color. If this persists, it can indicate that the brain is struggling to produce or regulate neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. While major depression is always a possibility, consistent apathy without a clear external cause can mark the beginning of a cognitive downturn. Either way, you should investigate. A crucial step is keeping a mood diary. Document episodes of uncharacteristic anger, suspicion, or withdrawal. Note what triggered them, how long they lasted, and how severe they were. This log can help doctors differentiate between ordinary mood swings and those that are abnormally frequent or intense. It also clues you into patterns. Are these negative feelings intensifying over time or happening in specific situations? Gathering such data can help shape the most appropriate interventions, be they medical, behavioral, or both. When it comes to professional help, expect the possibility of brain imaging or more in-depth cognitive tests if personality changes are prominent and unexplained. Medical practitioners may look for indicators of frontal lobe involvement, mild strokes, sometimes silent strokes, or the start of dementia, variants such as frontotemporal disorders. Early detection here can alter the trajectory significantly, allowing treatments that stabilize mood or slow the underlying brain changes. Never settle for the assumption that it's just old age. If something feels off, it probably is. Caring for someone with emerging personality changes can be emotionally tough. They may lash out or behave in ways that feel hurtful. Understand that this shift isn't always a conscious choice. The goal is to remain calm, avoid confrontation, and try to employ empathy. Encouraging them to speak with a mental health specialist or geriatrician can help clarify what's driving their changes and how best to manage them. Another angle to consider is the lifestyle component. Stress, poor sleep, or a diet lacking essential nutrients can all exacerbate mood instability. Implementing consistent sleep schedules, a balanced meal plan, and mild to moderate physical activity can help stabilize emotional states. According to the WHO's 2019 guidelines on risk reduction for cognitive decline, adopting healthy lifestyle habits can reduce the likelihood of further degeneration in emotional and cognitive functioning. This underscores how crucial it is to monitor diet and environment when personality deviations appear. In parallel, you should remain vigilant about any emerging signs of vascular strain. Are there any clues of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes? If so, these conditions can reduce blood flow to critical brain regions, triggering changes in temperament. An evaluation by a primary care doctor or neurologist may unearth these underlying issues. Addressing them early could mitigate the cognitive and emotional damage. Occasionally, the person might show day-to-day fluctuations in mood, appearing normal on good days and drastically altered on bad days. These inconsistencies shouldn't be dismissed. They might point to a slowly progressive condition that hasn't fully manifested yet. Family members often miss the bigger picture because they interpret the good days as a sign that everything is fine. That's precisely why a consistent record of behaviors is a game changer for getting a proper diagnosis. Have you ever noticed this sign? Comment "I feel it" if you relate "I'm safe" if not, and add a question for the doctor. Sharing this feedback can help others realize they're not alone in observing changes in their household. Plus, it fosters a community of awareness and empathy. Whatever your experience, know that it's always wise to consult your physician if personality shifts persist. Now that you understand how a wavering mood could reveal an underlying cognitive struggle, let's proceed to the third indicator. Trouble keeping up with speech patterns in social settings. This issue can feel profoundly isolating, and yet it often arrives quietly. A missed sentence here, a confused face there. Soon enough, group conversations become a dreaded ordeal. Let's investigate how this inability to follow conversation threads could be the next clue in an escalating chain of mental changes. For you know, Section 3, Trouble Following Conversations. One of the most disheartening early symptoms of cognitive decline is difficulty processing and keeping up with discussions. You might sit in a group of friends talking about a recent trip, but half the story whooshes past before you realize you've missed critical pieces. Suddenly you're nodding out of courtesy, unsure when or how to jump in. This leaves you feeling alienated, not because you don't care, but because your mind can't handle the rapid exchange of information. People sometimes mistake this for disinterest, which only worsens the social disconnection. For many individuals, the problem isn't simply a hearing issue. Even with perfect hearing test results, their brains can't process the conversation quickly enough. Neurologists believe this can indicate early issues in the temporal and parietal lobes areas that integrate language memory and auditory signals. Additionally, if you factor in even minor distractions, a TV humming, multiple people talking at once, it compounds the strain on the mind. The result: frustration, withdrawal, and a reluctance to participate in group events. Let's consider George, a 77-year-old ex-mechanic with a love for Sunday barbecues. Over time, he stopped making jokes and began simply hovering at the edges of conversations. His family assumed he was feeling down or bored, but he eventually admitted that he lost the thread whenever more than two people spoke. He'd walk away feeling humiliated that he couldn't keep pace. That discomfort steadily kept him away from large family gatherings, depriving him of a cherished social outlet and accelerating his isolation. The ripple effect here can be massive. Isolation reduces cognitive stimulation, which is vital for maintaining sharp mental skills. Lose that mental workout and your brain's muscles can atrophy more rapidly. That's why trouble following discussions can serve as a red flag. It often heralds a downward spiral in mental agility. Without social challenges, the brain doesn't get the consistent workout it needs, potentially paving the way for faster decline. A 2019 study from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health highlighted that consistent, meaningful social engagement boosts neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt and grow new connections. The study found a correlation between social isolation and accelerated cognitive decline, particularly in tasks requiring language processing. When your struggle to follow dialogues pushes you to avoid interactions, you lose out on that protective effect. It's a perfect storm. The very activity that could strengthen your mind becomes too difficult, so you quit, which then magnifies vulnerability. Recognizing this cycle is step one in breaking it. This symptom can also tie in with hearing loss, so it's crucial to rule that out with an audiologist. In some cases, hearing aids or sound amplification tools might partly fix the problem. But when hearing is fine and confusion persists, look deeper. You might be facing a processing deficit rooted in mild cognitive impairment, MCI, or early-stage dementia. Prompt identification can allow specialized speech therapists or occupational therapists to offer strategies, or it may signal that you should consult your physician for a more exhaustive checkup. So how can you discern if this is a passing phase or something more serious? Look for patterns and frequency. Are you consistently missing the gist of casual chats? Do you find yourself anxious about group gatherings even with longtime friends? Are you rereading lines in books or rewinding TV shows more than usual? These subtle hints can indicate that your brain's language processing circuits are struggling, and it's not just a transient issue. Also pay attention to word-finding difficulties. If you regularly pause mid-sentence, groping for simple words, or end up substituting placeholders like thingy or whatchamacallit take note, occasionally forgetting a word is normal. But when it becomes a constant stumbling block, especially if others notice, it raises a red flag. Difficulty retrieving words might be part of the same set of cognitive processes that hinder your ability to keep up with ongoing conversation. There's also a confidence aspect. Constantly feeling behind can spark anxiety in social settings, leading you to speak less and less. Over time, you might self-censor because you fear embarrassing yourself with incomplete sentences or off-topic replies. This is not just a blow to your self-esteem. It reduces the mental exercise you get from sharing ideas. Hence, a vicious cycle can lock in place. You speak less practice, less in your ability to interact declines further. From a physiological perspective, these conversational gaps might stem from reduced neural signaling in areas that process language. Microstrokes or plaque buildup can impede the smooth coordination of comprehension and verbal output. Even if these events aren't large enough to cause major signs like a speech-blocking stroke, minor accumulations over time degrade key cognitive functions. If you combine that with natural age-related changes, you see how these subtle deficits can emerge without a dramatic incident. What's the action plan? First, if you suspect you're sliding in this domain, consult a hearing specialist to rule out any auditory problems. Next, keep a short diary of how often you lose track of chats, especially noting the setting, large group, noisy environment, or just one-on-one. If the frequency is climbing, bring this record to your doctor for a thorough evaluation. They can run screening tools for mild cognitive impairment, and if necessary, refer you for advanced tests. Quick action here can lead to strategies like speech therapy or specialized cognitive training that might slow decline. Meanwhile, you can adopt practical conversation aids. Ask people to speak more slowly or to break down information into smaller chunks. Don't be shy about disclosing. You need them to repeat key points. Clear communication is better than guesswork. If possible, choose quieter venues for gatherings so you can filter out background noise. These small adjustments can reduce frustration and help you stay engaged, which in turn maintains mental agility. Also consider mental exercises that specifically target language processing, reading, challenging materials, performing memory quizzes with words, or using apps designed to sharpen listening comprehension. The Alzheimer's Association suggests that pairing these exercises with moderate physical activity can multiply the benefits, as improved cardiovascular health often translates into better cerebral blood flow. In other words, a 30-minute walk plus language drills might do more for your mind than either activity alone. Build this routine into your schedule and encourage loved ones to participate. Shared efforts often yield better results. Keep an eye on your diet too. Omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, and sufficient hydration all support overall brain function. Avoid excessive processed sugars and saturated fats, as they can promote inflammation and hamper circulation. Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, 2020. Nutrition and Healthy Aging emphasizes that a Mediterranean-style eating plan rich in fish, whole grains, legumes, and healthy fats has been linked to lower rates of cognitive decline. Coupled with a stable routine and supportive social network, dietary awareness can aid in preserving the clarity you need to keep pace in discussions. If you spot these struggles in a family member or friend, gently step in. Encourage them to see a specialist or share your observations without judgment. It might feel awkward, but ignoring the issue can exacerbate it. Early interventions like hearing checks, speech therapy, or simply adopting new conversation strategies can make a huge difference. Remember, open dialogue is often the gateway to meaningful help. Recognizing this language processing gap is more than a matter of convenience. It can be a forecast of deeper cognitive vulnerabilities and potential vascular issues. Next, let's move to the fourth sign: losing interest in beloved pastimes. This phenomenon can feel less alarming on the surface, but often signals that the spark of engagement in life is waning. Combine that with trouble following discussions, and you have a potent mix for accelerated mental decline. Read on to learn why dwindling enthusiasm might be your brain's silent cry for help. Section 4. Disinterest in once loved activities. When a person gradually abandons hobbies or pursuits that once filled their days with purpose, it can be a silent but profound alarm. The typical assumption is that aging naturally brings less energy. While that might be partly true, there's a meaningful difference between normal slowing down and a complete loss of drive. If once you were eager to knit every afternoon, yet now your knitting basket hasn't been touched for months without explanation, it's worth examining why the underlying cause might be more than just shifting tastes. Envision Betty, an 80-year-old who had a passion for watercolor painting. Each morning she would set up her easel near the window for an hour of creative flow. Over a span of months, her painting supplies lay untouched, and she stopped discussing her next project. Family members noticed, but Betty brushed off their questions by claiming she just didn't feel inspired. The deeper truth emerged when doctors identified early cognitive shifts, dampening her capacity for planning and motivation. Clinical psychologists label this phenomenon as apathy, a dwindling of interest or motivation in day-to-day pursuits. It might be subtle, skipping a gardening session here, or ignoring a book club invite there. But over time you notice entire aspects of a person's identity slowly disappearing. This differs from depression, which typically includes sadness or hopelessness. Apathy can present as an emotional void, lacking the distress that characterizes depression, but still draining your connection to life's joys. Research suggests that this withdrawal is not merely a psychological quirk, but often tied to neurobiological alterations in the frontal lobe. When parts of the brain that manage reward and initiative begin to underfunction, it can feel like someone has taken the wind out of your sails. Without immediate recognition and intervention, such detachment can pave the way for more pronounced memory lapses. After all, engaging with activities you love is akin to a daily workout for your mind. Stop exercising your brain and key circuits may weaken quicker. Doris, a 72-year-old retired librarian, exemplifies how disinterest can lead to more sweeping issues. Always an avid reader, she began letting newspapers and novels pile up unread. Soon her conversation topics narrowed. She stopped citing interesting articles and avoided discussing current events. Her mental stimulation dropped, which appeared to speed up her forgetfulness of new information. This spiral highlights how interlinked engagement is with cognitive vitality. From a circulation standpoint, ignoring beloved pastimes can also curb physical movement or reduce social interactions, both of which are essential for healthy blood flow in the brain. Activity fosters oxygenation and social settings, encourage mental agility. When you systematically remove these from your routine, you invite a cascade of negative effects, such as increased inflammation and decreased cerebral perfusion. The result may be a doubling down on your risk for not only cognitive decline, but also stroke risk. So what should you watch for? Look for a cumulative pattern. The gardening tools remain boxed up. The music lessons go unattended. The photography camera gathers dust. If this is a radical change from the past, don't dismiss it as a normal slowdown. Loved ones might hear repeated excuses. I'm tired, my back hurts. I'll do it tomorrow, but rarely see follow-through. Over time, these justifications lose their ring of truth, highlighting that something deeper is at play. Consult your physician if this personality shift becomes evident. Let them evaluate whether depression, pain, or another medical condition is at fault. If not, mild cognitive impairment might be looming. An MRI could reveal whether changes in the frontal cortex or certain white matter tracts are dampening the enthusiasm required to stay involved in favorite pursuits. Treating or slowing these physical alterations can sometimes rekindle a person's sense of passion. What interventions can help? Structured schedules can encourage re-engagement. Plan dedicated blocks of time for old hobbies and treat them like essential appointments. Social support also matters. Invite friends to join in to reduce the barrier of starting alone. Sometimes a friend's gentle encouragement can coax someone back into an activity they've been avoiding. Cognitive behavioral strategies can help too, by reminding individuals of the joy or purpose the hobby used to bring, thereby sparking motivation. Meanwhile, don't forget nutrition. In a 2021 article from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease Diet, rich in vitamins B6, B12, folate, and antioxidants was associated with lower rates of apathy in older adults. Whole grains, leafy greens, and moderate amounts of fish can improve metabolic processes in the brain. While dietary changes alone won't restore a lost hobby overnight, they can stabilize underlying biological factors that influence mood and drive. Consider this part of a holistic approach. Mind, body, and environment all working together to sustain interest in life. Could this lack of engagement be a sign of deeper emotional turmoil? Possibly. That's why it's essential to rule out clinical depression. Still, even in the absence of classic depression, a slow fade from once cherished pastimes is a red flag. If left unaddressed, a person can slip into near total disengagement, losing not only pleasurable pursuits, but also key mental stimulation. This can accelerate the process toward more pronounced cognitive and neurological problems. If you're a caregiver, monitor how often your loved one says no to group events or family gatherings. It's easy to rationalize a refusal here or there. But when it becomes a regular pattern, you should inquire deeper. Ask them about how they feel during the day. In some cases, simply opening a conversation leads to insights such as, "I stopped gardening because I can't remember how to care for the plants." That confession might show the real barrier behind the withdrawal. As with the other signs, early action is your best defense. If you address the apathy promptly, you may keep the person engaged long enough to slow further mental deterioration. Even small victories like returning to a beloved hobby for 15 minutes a day can generate a positive ripple effect. You bolster emotional satisfaction while keeping cognitive circuits active. Try celebrating any micro successes. A day spent knitting or a short walk in the garden is far better than none at all. Pulling back from treasured activities often leads to loneliness, as social circles might revolve around those common interests. When you stop showing up, friends may drift away, not realizing you're dealing with more than simple disinterest. This sets off a chain reaction of isolation, which, as we've seen, can deepen cognitive decline. The window for reversing this process narrows if you wait too long. So if you see a stark decrease in involvement, address it head on. Before we move on, take a moment to reflect. Are you or a loved one losing touch with favorite hobbies for no obvious reason? If so, consider implementing a small 24-hour challenge. Ask yourself to spend at least 30 minutes revisiting that pastime tomorrow. Keep track of how you feel before and after. This simple test can reveal whether it's genuinely just a change in interests or part of a bigger issue. Share the outcome in the comments. Your experience may inspire someone else. Our next stop is the fifth early sign: struggling to navigate even familiar surroundings. It's one thing to forget a new route or get momentarily disoriented. It's quite another to lose your sense of direction in places you've known for years. This might be the most chilling indicator of an underlying cognitive shift, as it disrupts one's sense of security and independence. Let's dig deeper into how directional confusion can be an unmistakable red flag. Section 5. Struggling with directions and familiar places. Imagine driving to the local supermarket you visited twice a week for over a decade, and suddenly you can't recall whether to turn left or right at a major intersection. Or you're walking around your neighborhood and realize you've lost your bearings on a street you've strolled countless times. These scenarios are not mere mental hiccups. They can be ominous signals that the brain's spatial processing centers are starting to malfunction. Although anyone can have a slight lapse once in a while, consistent confusion in well-known locations is a different beast altogether. Why is this so alarming? Because our internal navigation depends on a complex orchestra of brain regions: frontal lobes, parietal lobes, the hippocampus, all functioning in sync. When any part of this system falters, even routine travel can become a maze. This type of spatial disorientation is one of the most common early complaints among individuals later diagnosed with dementia. And as you might guess, it also increases the risk of accidents, stress, and a compounding fear of leaving home. Robert, 76, had always prided himself on being an excellent driver, refusing to rely on GPS for directions. Yet he found himself turning onto the wrong highway ramp while trying to reach a favorite fishing spot he'd visited for 30 years. Shocked and embarrassed, Robert made an excuse about not paying attention. But the following week, he wound up in a completely different part of town, unable to figure out how he got there. His children stepped in and discovered that these navigation lapses were becoming a regular occurrence. According to the WHO's 2020 report on aging and cognitive functions, consistent challenges in spatial awareness can reflect underlying vascular compromises. Tiny blockages or microbleeds may impair the brain's ability to coordinate mental maps. Over time, these small injuries accumulate, leading to more frequent confusion. In certain cases, such silent strokes can go unnoticed until outward symptoms, like trouble navigating Surface 1. Hidden danger is that seniors who sense their orientation faltering might avoid driving or going outside alone altogether. Self-imposed isolation soon sets in, drastically limiting physical activity and social engagement. As we've covered repeatedly, this isolation can accelerate cognitive decline. You move less, interact less, and your brain receives fewer stimuli to keep it nimble. Left unattended, directional confusion can spiral into a reclusive lifestyle that chips away at overall health. Distinguishing normal forgetfulness from a genuine spatial processing issue requires looking at patterns. If you get mildly turned around in a new mall, that's not necessarily alarming. But if you keep missing the same landmarks in your own community, or if you feel uneasy navigating even short distances, it's time for a closer look. Keep track of how often you lose direction where it happens and what you were thinking at the time. A consistent pattern of disorientation deserves professional attention. Medical professionals can use tests like clock drawing exercises or navigational tasks on a computer to check your spatial reasoning. Sometimes an MRI or CT scan can reveal whether the areas responsible for spatial orientation show signs of atrophy or reduced blood flow. If the trouble is severe, a neurological consult becomes necessary to rule out or diagnose conditions such as mild cognitive impairment, early dementia, or vascular disorders. Identifying these issues early can prompt interventions ranging from medication to lifestyle adjustments that potentially slow the progression. Gary, a 70-year-old warehouse supervisor, noticed he was taking oddly circuitous routes on his forklift at work. He brushed it off until coworkers mentioned how he seemed to be forgetting the layout of the storage aisles. This disorientation extended to his personal life. Getting home from a local diner took twice as long. After seeking a medical evaluation, Gary discovered he had high blood pressure and early signs of type 2 diabetes, both of which impacted his cerebral blood vessels. By tackling those conditions plus receiving targeted cognitive therapy, he improved his orientation skills, though not entirely reversing them. If you suspect you or someone you care about is dealing with this kind of confusion, consider practical changes. Encourage the use of GPS or smartphone navigation not as a crutch, but as a protective measure. Post reminders or maps in key locations, like near the front door or the car dashboard. Also consider traveling with a friend for errands until you see some improvement. While it may feel like a loss of independence, think of it as a temporary safety net that could prevent bigger mishaps. Driving evaluations offered by some occupational therapists can provide objective data on whether it's still safe to drive solo. It's a difficult subject. Nobody wants to lose driving privileges, but ignoring the issue can put everyone on the road at risk. In some cases, restricting driving to daytime hours or familiar routes might be a viable solution. The key is to handle this transition, compassionately acknowledging the emotional toll of giving up or cutting back on driving. While it's a tough conversation, it's often necessary for safety. Physical exercise can aid in sharpening spatial skills. Activities like dancing, tennis, or Tai Chi demand you to coordinate movement in space. This helps keep the brain circuits for orientation active and resilient. Combine these exercises with cognitive drills like puzzle-based navigation games, and you create a two-pronged approach to sustain or even strengthen orientation skills for as long as possible. Nourishing your mind's hardware also remains essential. Ensure you're getting a healthy supply of brain-friendly nutrients, particularly healthy fats like omega-3s and micronutrients from fresh produce. Dehydration, especially in older adults, can contribute to mental fog, so keep fluid intake up. The synergy of balanced nutrition, consistent movement, and mental exercises can provide a buffer against the worst impacts of creeping disorientation. Again, consult your physician before making any drastic lifestyle changes. As with all these signs, you can't let embarrassment or denial hold you back from seeking help. It's no one's fault that the human body and mind change with time. Early identification can prolong your ability to live independently while safeguarding you from accidents or total confusion in unpredictable places. Friends and relatives typically notice these slips in orientation first, so it might be up to them to raise the alarm. These early months or years can define whether you manage the issue effectively or let it escalate unchecked. Now let's bring all these signs together. We've looked at 1, consistent forgetfulness in routine tasks, 2, abrupt mood or personality shifts, 3, difficulty following conversations. 4, a loss of interest in cherished activities. And 5, disorientation in familiar locales. These 5 pointers don't represent the entirety of early cognitive decline, but they form a core cluster of symptoms that experts watch for. Ignoring them can be perilous, given that some might point to underlying vascular issues that boost stroke potential. However, acknowledging them early can shift the narrative toward prevention and management. Up next, I'll provide you with a structured action plan, a follow-up schedule, a possible meal framework, and a 7-day routine you can try. These steps won't cure serious neurological conditions, but they can make a tangible difference in preserving the mental capacity you still have. Stay tuned, because adopting even a handful of these recommendations could help avert the spiral of cognitive and circulatory decline. And always remember, if any sign here resonates with you, consult your physician to verify what's really happening. Let's dive into the plan, but first let's do a quick check-in. If you found the information on navigation trouble illuminating, please type "I'm still here" number 5 in the comments. That way I know you're actively processing this and committed to your brain health journey. Interaction like this keeps our community alive, encourages others to share, and might even spur a conversation that provides further insights into early detection. Now let's move to the action phase. Action plan and 7-day challenge. Your action plan begins with acknowledging each of the 5 signals discussed. Make a simple chart with columns for memory slips, mood changes, conversational gaps, lost hobbies, and directional issues. Over the next 7 days, rate your experience of each category on a scale of 1 to 5, indicating how frequently or severely you've noticed the symptom. If you're caring for someone else, help them fill out the same chart. This tangible record will help you and your doctor see where the greatest concerns lie. Next, implement a daily checklist that includes basic tasks, like paying bills, following a short exercise routine, engaging in a social phone call, reading for at least 20 minutes, and jotting down any memory lapses. For mood tracking, note whether you felt uncharacteristically sad, irritable, or paranoid. If a pattern emerges, consult your physician. Documenting these shifts can be a game changer, as it transforms vague impressions. "I think I'm getting worse" into trackable data. Knowledge is your best asset in proactive healthcare. In addition, schedule a follow-up with your primary care doctor or a neurologist for a thorough evaluation request. A full blood panel to check for vitamin deficiencies, thyroid issues, and any inflammatory markers. If concerns persist, push for imaging studies. An MRI or CT scan can detect early structural or vascular changes in your brain. Don't overlook your cardiovascular status. Ask about an EKG, blood pressure, monitoring, and cholesterol screening. These metrics often correlate with your stroke risk and can also impact cognitive health. Let's talk about a meal target to support your brain and heart. Strive for 2 servings of fatty fish per week, like salmon or sardines, aiming for a healthy dose of omega-3s. Include plenty of colorful produce, berries, leafy greens, bell peppers for their antioxidants. Round out your meals with whole grains, beans, and moderate amounts of lean protein. Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health 2020 lists the Mediterranean diet as a strong contender for reducing both cognitive and stroke risks due to its balanced combination of these elements. For each day of the next week, try a dual activity. 15 minutes of physical movement, like brisk walking or light yoga, followed by 15 minutes of a cognitive challenge, like a word puzzle or a short memory game. This pairing helps promote neuroplasticity. You stimulate your circulation with exercise, then you engage your synapses with a mental task. Over time, these small routines can compound, leading to a healthier mind-body loop. Now here's the 7-day challenge you can share on social media or with loved ones. 1-day-1, document one instance in which you forgot something routine. Write down the time, place, and what happened. 2-day-2, track one moment of mood fluctuation. Did you feel anger or sadness out of proportion to the situation? 3-day-3, engage in a conversation with 2 or more people. Note if you lost track of the discussion and what specifically threw you off. 4-day-4, spend at least 30 minutes on a previous hobby. Rate how much enjoyment or difficulty you experience. 5-day-5, go to a familiar place. Pay attention to whether you felt any directional confusion or hesitancy. 6-day-6, repeat a physical cognitive combo. Take a short walk, then do a brain puzzle. Record how you felt afterward. Day 7, reflect on the week. Which area challenged you most? Use a journal or note-taking app to compile your daily observations. On that 7th day, if you identify recurring struggles, it's your signal to consult your physician without delay. No one can diagnose you simply from this challenge, but consistent red flags over 7 days suggest you shouldn't wait. Early identification can lead to interventions that keep you sharper for longer. And if you find minimal or no problems, congratulate yourself on staying mindful and keep these strategies on hand. Why does this 7-day challenge matter? Because short-term experiments often reveal patterns we miss in our day-to-day autopilot mode. Taking time to reflect even for a minute each evening can highlight issues that might otherwise remain hidden. It also empowers you with structured self-awareness, a critical ingredient for early intervention. If your results indicate you're at risk, loop in a professional before serious consequences develop. Remember, none of these activities replace professional diagnosis. If you notice multiple red flags, the wise step is always to seek medical guidance. You might discover your concerns have a simple fix, like adjusting a medication or hearing aid settings, or you might learn about early dementia or mild cognitive impairment. In both scenarios, knowledge equips you to take control rather than wait passively for worse outcomes. Throughout this process, maintain open communication with family and friends. Let them know about your 7-day challenge. Ask if they've seen any of these warning signals in you. Sometimes outsiders pick up on subtle changes that elude our self-observation. Their insights can guide you to focus on the right interventions or prompt you to see a specialist sooner. If you're the one observing these signs in a loved one, approach the topic with empathy. Rather than "you're acting strange," try, "I've noticed you seem more stressed or forgetful lately. How do you feel?" Offer to do the 7-day challenge alongside them, so it feels less like a test and more like a shared health journey. This supportive approach typically fosters cooperation rather than resistance. Always remember that no single sign is conclusive proof of early dementia or a looming stroke. It's the pattern and persistence that matter. That's why being systematic, making checklists, diaries, or rating scales gives you real evidence to share with healthcare providers. And that evidence can mean the difference between timely intervention and prolonged confusion. Act now, because the earlier you adapt, the more likely you are to preserve your independence. Let's not forget the fundamental rule. Consult your physician before making major changes to your lifestyle or suspecting the worst. Cognitive lapses might also come from stress, sleep deficits, or side effects of certain drugs. Mood swings might be triggered by unresolved emotional problems, not necessarily a frontal lobe malfunction. However, if these issues persist and intensify, medical input is non-negotiable. It's your best move to stay ahead of potential decline. Finally, incorporate small but effective daily habits that keep you mentally agile. Read challenging articles, engage in conversation practice, memorizing phone numbers, or learn a few new words in a foreign language. Rotate these tasks so your brain doesn't get bored. Variety keeps different cognitive domains active, making you more resilient. This approach works like cross-training for athletes. You challenge multiple skill sets, ensuring no single area is left weak and vulnerable. As you embark on this plan, share your progress with a friend or online group. A community can offer moral support, fresh ideas, and motivational boosts when you feel discouraged. If you're comfortable, post your day-by-day updates to encourage others who might be too shy or afraid. Mutual encouragement often propels greater commitment to the challenge and fosters faster recognition of warning signs. Don't underestimate the power of collective effort. Now you have the blueprint: a symptom checklist, a follow-up schedule with your doctor, a balanced meal framework, and a well-defined 7-day challenge. This action plan isn't magic. It won't miraculously fix deeply rooted neurological or vascular problems, but it can buy you time, sustain your mental sharpness, and steer you toward professional help. If red flags persist, remember, early vigilance can pay massive dividends in quality of life. Let's recap the essential takeaways and close with a final invitation to our top turn. Call to comment and wrap up. Before we conclude, it's time to hear from you. Have you ever noticed this sign? Comment "I feel it" if you relate "I'm safe." If not, and add a question for the doctor. This question invites community interaction and can guide others to reflect on their own experiences. Your comments might spark a valuable dialogue, revealing shared challenges and solutions. Feel free to share your stories or concerns as the knowledge grows when we engage openly. Let's revisit the big picture. Ignoring these early signs can catapult you into a health crisis that extends well beyond memory lapses. The staccato list includes 1 subtle but escalating forgetfulness, 2 mood upheavals you can't explain, 3 trouble keeping pace in conversations, 4 disinterest in once rewarding hobbies, and 5 losing your way in familiar environments. Each sign alone is worrisome. Combined, they paint a powerful warning. Remember, what starts as a minor annoyance can grow into debilitating confusion, isolation, and even vascular events that compromise your brain's oxygen supply. To recap rapidly in bullet form, catch subtle mental shifts early. They might show up in daily tasks or interactions well before severe confusion hits. Track emotional volatility. Unpredictable anger, suspicion, or apathy can herald underlying neurological stress. Really, don't stay silent. Engage in conversation, share diaries or logs with loved ones, and consult your physician promptly. These 3 points can anchor your strategy for staying a step ahead of cognitive decline. If you found value here, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this message with your network. Your support helps us continue creating in-depth health discussions that blend medical credibility and real-life stories. The more people who learn about these lesser-known danger signals, the more proactive our communities become about brain and circulatory wellness. Knowledge is the first line of defense. Help us spread it far and wide. As you mull over all of this, remember that nothing here is intended to override professional medical counsel. When in doubt, consult your physician, especially if these symptoms persist or intensify. We can't emphasize that enough early medical advice can define whether you slow a problem or let it escalate. But never forget the personal power you hold. Daily choices in nutrition, exercise, social engagement, and stress management can fundamentally shape your brain's destiny. The future of your mind isn't set in stone. Now I'll leave you with one parting question to spark further dialogue. What do you think is the most challenging daily adjustment for preventing early cognitive decline? Diet, exercise, social engagement, or something else? Let us know in the comments below. Your insights may guide our next video, which could help someone else in this community take effective action. Thank you for sticking with me through this extensive exploration, and may you stay proactive in guarding both your mental clarity and your vascular health.